A broke artist painted a mural for free, never realizing it would become a city landmark. The thought echoed in Maya Chen's mind as she stood before the crumbling wall, paintbrushes clutched in her trembling hand. The December wind bit through her worn jacket, but she barely noticed. 3 months behind on rent, rejection letters piling up on her kitchen counter, and now this, an unpaid project for a community center that could barely afford to keep its lights on. "It doesn't have to be anything fancy," Mrs. Abernathy had said, her weathered face creasing with hope. "Just something to brighten this corner. Heaven knows this neighborhood could use some color." Maya stared at the vast expanse of faded brick. 6 weeks ago, she would have seen opportunity. Now she saw only hours of free labor when she should be hunting for paid work. Behind her, cars splashed through puddles, sending dirty water across her paint-splattered boots. Maya closed her eyes, letting the cold sink deeper. When had art become a burden rather than her salvation? When had her dreams shrunk from gallery showcases to wondering if she could afford tomorrow's meal? She set her supply box down on the sidewalk, the metal latches cold against her fingers. 28 years old, and what did she have to show for it? A fine arts degree collecting dust, a studio apartment she might lose by New Year's, and a portfolio full of paintings no one wanted to buy. "You're actually going to do it?" Maya turned to find a man watching her, hands shoved deep in his pockets. His dark hair fell across his forehead, slightly too long, as if he'd forgotten to cut it. His eyes, warm brown, almost amber in the afternoon light, studied her with mild curiosity. "Apparently," she answered, her breath clouding in the air between them. "In this weather?" He nodded toward the sky, where steel-gray clouds threatened snow. Maya shrugged. "Not like I have a better offer." He stepped closer, and she noticed the camera hanging around his neck. "I'm Eli. I document neighborhood changes for the Historical Society." His smile revealed a slight gap between his front teeth. "Mostly I just wander around taking pictures of old buildings before they get demolished." "Maya." She extended her hand, then quickly withdrew it, noticing the blue paint still embedded under her fingernails from yesterday's failed commission. "And this isn't exactly a historical moment, just a desperate artist taking whatever opportunity comes her way." Eli's eyes crinkled at the corners. "You never know what might become history." She watched him walk away, his camera swinging gently against his chest. Strange man. Nice but strange. The first brushstrokes on the wall felt mechanical, joyless. Maya sketched rough outlines, working from the center outward. Mrs. Abernathy had given her complete creative freedom, both a blessing and a curse when inspiration ran dry. But as the hours passed, something shifted. Perhaps it was the rhythm of her arm moving across the surface, or the way the first hints of color began to transform the dead space. By sunset, Maya had only completed a small section, but it was enough to feel the first flicker of what had been missing for months: purpose. She packed her supplies as the streetlights buzzed to life, promising the wall she would return tomorrow. That night, in her cramped apartment, Maya sat cross-legged on her bed, sketchbook open before her. Outside, snow began to fall in earnest, dusting the city in silence. For the first time in weeks, her pencil moved with urgency, planning tomorrow's work. The mural's concept had emerged slowly throughout the day, faces and hands reaching toward one another, connections forming and dissolving, the beautiful fragility of human bonds. She fell asleep with the sketchbook still open, dreamless but somehow lighter than before. Morning brought 6 inches of snow and temperatures that made her teeth chatter. Any reasonable person would have stayed home. Maya layered 2 sweaters under her jacket, wrapped a scarf around her neck, and headed to the wall. To her surprise, someone had erected a small tent-like structure near her workspace, shielding a portion of the wall from the elements. A note was taped to one of the poles. "Thought you might need this. Eli." The unexpected kindness made her throat tighten. She worked steadily through the morning, her fingers gradually numbing despite her gloves. The community center door opened occasionally, people pausing to watch her work before hurrying on their way. Around noon, Eli appeared with 2 steaming cups. "Thought you might need this too," he said, handing her one. "It's just hot chocolate. I wasn't sure if you were a coffee person." Maya accepted the cup gratefully, letting the warmth seep into her palms. "Thanks for the shelter. You didn't have to do that. Call it selfish." His camera clicked as he photographed her progress. "I wanted to make sure the mural survived long enough for me to document it properly." "It's nothing special," she said, studying the emerging faces on the wall. "Just something to make people pause for a second in their day." "Isn't that what art is supposed to do?" Eli asked. "Make us pause?" Maya sipped her hot chocolate, considering. I used to think it was supposed to change the world. Maybe it does, he said, one pause at a time. She found herself smiling despite the cold, despite everything. That's a nice thought. Days bled into weeks. The mural expanded across the wall, growing more complex with each session. Maya worked through snowstorms and bitter cold, sometimes alone, sometimes with Eli quietly photographing nearby. He never interfered, never offered suggestions, just witnessed. Occasionally he brought her coffee or sandwiches, claiming they were extras. From his lunch, though she suspected otherwise, word spread through the neighborhood. Children from the community center began to watch her work after their programs ended. An elderly man brought her a folding chair. A woman who owned the bakery down the street delivered still warm bread one afternoon. People are talking about your painting, Mrs. Abernathy told her one day, bringing hot tea in a thermos. Haven't seen this neighborhood so interested in anything since they threatened to close the library. The mural had evolved beyond Maya's initial concept. What began as abstract figures had transformed into a tapestry of neighborhood scenes. Children playing in the snow, elderly couples walking hand in hand, workers heading to early morning shifts, all connected by swirling ribbons of color that represented the invisible threads binding them together. Maya added faces she recognized, Mrs. Abernathy with her kind eyes, the baker with flour-dusted hands, the crossing guard who danced while directing traffic, and yes, Eli, camera raised to his eye, capturing moments others might miss. She painted them as she saw them, beautiful in their ordinariness, luminous in their humanity. January turned to February. Maya received notice that her apartment building had been sold. Rents would increase by 30%. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her pocket. Later, she painted a small figure in the corner of the mural, a woman with shoulders slightly bent but face turned toward light. "That's you, isn't it?" Eli asked one evening as they stood together admiring the day's progress. Maya nodded, too tired to deny it. Why did you make yourself so small compared to everyone else? She didn't answer immediately, watching her breath form clouds in the fading light. Because that's how I feel most of the time. Small. Invisible. Eli studied the mural, then her. You know what I see when I look at this wall? I see someone who notices everything about everyone else. Someone who sees beauty where most people just see ordinary life. I'm being evicted, she said suddenly. The words escaped before she could stop them. Not immediately, but soon. Can't afford the new rent? Eli was quiet for a long moment. I have a spare room, he finally said. It's nothing fancy. Actually, it's pretty cramped. But it's yours if you need it. Just until you figure things out. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks despite the cold. I can't accept that. Why not? Because I've already taken too much from you. The tent, the drinks, your time. And I've taken from you too, he said. These weeks watching you work, they've reminded me why I started taking photographs in the first place. To preserve moments that matter. He gestured to the wall. This matters, Maya. She looked away, blinking rapidly. I'll think about it. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. Her apartment felt both suffocating and emptier than usual. She wrapped herself in a blanket and sat by the window, watching snowflakes spiral under the streetlights. On her nightstand lay a business card Eli had given her, his address and phone number scrawled on the back. The next morning, a Sunday, she arrived at the wall to find a small crowd gathered. At least 20 people stood in the cold, drinking coffee from travel mugs, talking quietly. They fell silent when they saw her. We came to help, said a teenage boy she recognized from the community center. If you want. Maya looked at the faces watching her expectantly. I don't understand. An older woman stepped forward. My grandson told me about what you're creating here. Said it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. She gestured to a boy of about 8, who ducked his head shyly. We thought maybe you could use some assistance. Many hands make light work, my mother always said. For a moment, Maya couldn't speak. Then, slowly, she opened her supply box. I'd need to show you what to do. We're quick learners, someone called out, and laughter rippled through the group. And so, on a frigid February morning, Maya found herself directing a makeshift crew of volunteers. She assigned simple background tasks to some, detailed work to others who showed aptitude. Children happily filled in solid color blocks while their parents added texture and shading under her guidance. Midway through the day, Eli appeared, camera in hand. His eyes widened at the scene before him. Did you organize this? Maya asked when he made his way to her side. He shook his head. This is all you, Maya. All you. By sunset, the mural had nearly doubled in size and complexity. The volunteers departed with paint-stained hands and promises to return next weekend. Maya stood before the wall, overwhelmed by what had transpired. "It's becoming something special," Eli said, standing beside her. "It's becoming something bigger than me," she replied. "The best art always is?" She turned to him, making a decision. "About that room?" Eli's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted factory building. Large windows let in streams of light that fell across wooden floors worn smooth by decades of footsteps. Books lined every available surface, and photographs covered the walls, not framed exhibition prints, but casual snapshots held up with thumbtacks and tape. "Home sweet home," he said, setting her suitcase down. "The spare room is through there. It's small, but it gets good light in the morning." Maya moved to the window, looking out at the cityscape. From this height, she could see the neighborhood stretching out before her, and in the distance, the wall with her mural, a splash of color visible even from here. "I can pay you once I find steady work," she said, turning back to him. "And I'll help with groceries and cleaning and—" "Maya," Eli interrupted gently. "It's fine. Really." That night, she slept in a strange bed for the first time in years, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of someone else moving through rooms nearby. It should have felt uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like the first deep breath after holding it for too long. In the morning, she found a note on the kitchen counter. Had to leave early for an assignment. "Coffee in the pot. Make yourself at home. _E. Make yourself at home." Such simple words, yet they lodged somewhere beneath her ribs, warm and unexpected. Living with Eli was surprisingly easy. He was often gone during the day, documenting the city for his various projects. Maya continued working on the mural, now accompanied by regular volunteers who showed up with surprising dedication. Weekends brought the largest crowds, sometimes 30 or 40 people working together, laughing and sharing stories as they painted. Local news caught wind of the community effort. A reporter appeared one Saturday, notebook in hand, asking questions about what had inspired such collaboration. "It was just supposed to be a simple mural," Maya explained, gesturing to the now massive artwork that stretched nearly the length of the block. "But then people started showing up." "And why do you think that happened?" the reporter asked. Maya looked at the volunteers, the elderly woman guiding a child's hand as they painted together, teenagers meticulously adding details to a section depicting the neighborhood's past, a businessman in a suit who came every weekend to work on his lunch break. "I think," she said slowly, "people were hungry to be part of something beautiful." The article ran the following Tuesday, complete with photographs. By Wednesday, visitors from other parts of the city began appearing to watch the work in progress. Someone started a social media account documenting the mural's evolution. A local restaurant organized a fundraiser, donating proceeds to buy supplies. "You've started a movement," Eli told her one night as they ate takeout on his living room floor. Newspaper clippings and photographs spread around them. Maya shook her head. "I just painted a wall." "No." He set down his container, suddenly serious. "You gave people permission to be part of something. Do you know how rare that is? To invite strangers into your creative process?" She pushed her food around with her fork. "It wasn't generosity. I was desperate. Maybe that's where the best connections start," he said. "When we're honest about needing each other." March brought warmer temperatures and even more attention to the mural. A local arts foundation contacted Maya about a grant opportunity. A gallery owner left his card with Mrs. Abernathy, asking for an introduction. Suddenly, the broke artist who couldn't sell a canvas was fielding inquiries about commissioned work. Through it all, Eli remained a steady presence. He never inserted himself into her growing spotlight, content to document from the sidelines. At home, and yes, she had begun to think of his apartment as home, they developed comfortable routines. She cooked on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He handled the other days. They watched old movies on his projector, arguing good-naturedly about plot holes and character motivations. One evening, as spring rain tapped against the windows, Maya sorted through a stack of Eli's photographs spread across the coffee table. "These are incredible," she said, studying an image of an elderly couple dancing in a nearly empty subway car. "Why don't you exhibit them?" Eli shrugged, the gesture almost defensive. "I'm a documentary photographer. I record things, that's all." "That's not all," Maya insisted, holding up another photo, a child reaching for a soap bubble, sunlight refracting through the delicate sphere. "You see beauty in ordinary moments. That's a gift," says the woman who turned a community center wall into the talk of the city. She set the photographs down carefully. "Why did you help me that first day? With the tent, the hot chocolate, all of it. You didn't even know me." Eli was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Finally, he said, "I watched you for almost an hour before I introduced myself. You were so focused, so completely absorbed in making your first marks on that wall. It reminded me of something I'd lost, that feeling of being wholly present in a creative moment." He met her eyes. "I wanted to protect that somehow." The air between them changed, charged with something neither was ready to name. Maya looked away first. "We should collaborate," she said, reaching for safer ground. "Your photographs, my paintings, something that combines both." Eli's expression softened. "I'd like that." By April, the mural was nearing completion. What had begun as a one-person project had transformed into a community masterpiece. Every inch contained stories. Some Maya had painted herself, others contributed by the volunteers under her guidance. Children's handprints formed flowers along the bottom edge. Quotes in different languages spiraled through the composition. Faces of local residents, some deceased and painted from photographs brought by family members, watched over the scene with benevolent expressions. The final section remained unfinished, a central panel that Maya had reserved for something special, though she wasn't yet sure what it would be. On a warm Saturday morning, as volunteers gathered for what might be one of the last work sessions, a black town car pulled up to the curb. A woman in a tailored suit emerged, followed by an older man whose face Maya recognized immediately from news reports, the mayor. Mrs. Abernathy hurried over, smoothing her hair nervously. "Maya, dear, the mayor wants to speak with you." The crowd parted as the mayor approached, his hand extended. "Ms. Chen, I've heard a great deal about you and this remarkable project." Maya wiped her paint-stained hands on her jeans before shaking his. "Thank you, sir. It's been a community effort." "Indeed." He surveyed the massive mural, nodding appreciatively. "That's precisely why I'm here. The City Council has been following your work, and we'd like to make it official, to designate this as a protected landmark." A murmur ran through the crowd. Maya blinked, certain she'd misheard. "A landmark? With a proper dedication ceremony, of course." The mayor continued. "We believe this mural represents the very best of our city: diversity, collaboration, beauty arising from shared purpose." Maya felt dizzy suddenly, as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. A hand touched her elbow, steadying her, Eli appearing silently at her side. I don't know what to say," she managed. "Say yes." The mayor chuckled. "My office will handle the paperwork. We're thinking of a dedication ceremony next month, if that works for you." After the mayor departed, leaving his assistant to exchange contact information, the volunteers erupted in cheers and congratulations. Maya stood quietly at the center of the celebration, overwhelmed. "You okay?" Eli asked, his voice low enough for only her to hear. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "Want to get out of here for a bit?" Another nod. They walked in silence, away from the crowd, until they reached a small park several blocks away. Maya sank onto a bench, exhaling a long, shaky breath. "A landmark," she said finally. "My work is going to be a city landmark." "Your work?" Eli corrected gently, "and the work of everyone who contributed. That's what makes it special." Maya looked at him, really looked at him, the man who had built her a shelter against the snow, who had opened his home to her, who had witnessed her transformation from desperate artist to community catalyst. "I know what the central panel should be," she said suddenly. "What?" "Hands. Dozens of them reaching toward each other. Some touching, some almost touching, some supporting others." The vision unfurled in her mind with perfect clarity. And at the center, two hands, one holding a paintbrush, one holding a camera. Eli's eyes softened. "Maya, you said it yourself that first day. You never know what might become history." She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "I never would have finished it without you." "You would have," he said, squeezing her hand. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." The dedication ceremony took place on a perfect May afternoon. Hundreds gathered before the mural, now completed with the central panel exactly as Maya had envisioned it. A brass plaque had been installed nearby, listing the names of every volunteer who had contributed. The mayor spoke eloquently about community and art. Mrs. Abernathy wiped tears from her eyes as she described how a simple request for something to brighten this corner had transformed the neighborhood. Children from the community center performed a dance they had choreographed, inspired by the flowing lines of the mural. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she stepped to the microphone, heart hammering. She had prepared remarks, carefully written and rehearsed, but looking out at the sea of faces, so many now familiar, so many she had painted, the prepared words felt inadequate. 6 months ago, she began, setting aside her notes, I was a broke artist who agreed to paint a mural for free. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. I was desperate and alone, and I saw this project as nothing more than unpaid labor. She paused, gathering her thoughts. What I never realized, what I couldn't have possibly imagined, was that this wall would become not just a landmark for the city, but a landmark in my own life. A dividing line between before and after. Before, when I thought art was something I created in isolation. After, when I understood that the most meaningful art happens in community, through connection. Maya's eyes found Eli in the crowd, his camera lowered for once, his attention fully on her. Someone once told me that art is supposed to make us pause, to interrupt our hurried lives and remind us to really see each other. She smiled. This mural made me pause. It made me see my neighbors, my community, myself, differently. And in that pause, something miraculous happened. We found each other. Applause washed over her as she stepped away from the microphone. The mayor unveiled the official landmark designation. Photographers captured the moment, though none with the tender attention of Eli, who moved through the crowd, documenting not just the mural but the faces of those who had helped create it. Later, as the celebration continued with a block party stretching into early evening, Maya found herself standing before the central panel. The painted hands, reaching, connecting, supporting, seemed almost alive in the golden light. What are you thinking? Eli asked, appearing beside her. I'm thinking about what comes next. Worried about following up a landmark? He teased gently. Maya shook her head. No. For the first time in my life, I'm not worried about what comes next. I'm just open to it. Eli's hand found hers, warm and solid. I had an idea about that collaboration we talked about. Oh? There's an abandoned building in the next neighborhood over. The Historical Society is trying to save it, but they need public support. His eyes lit with excitement. What if we created something there? Photographs projected onto your paintings, something interactive where people could add their own stories. Maya felt a familiar spark ignite within her, the thrill of creative possibility. That sounds challenging. Too ambitious? She turned to him, a smile spreading across her face. Not at all. It sounds like exactly what we should do next. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, Maya looked back at the mural one last time. From broken artist to landmark creator, from isolation to community, from emptiness to purpose. A broke artist had painted a mural for free, never realizing it would become a city landmark. But more importantly, never realizing it would become the canvas upon which she would rediscover herself, not alone, but hand in hand with others, creating something far more beautiful than she could have imagined on her own.